All right. Well, hi everyone. My name's Scott Albro. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called TOPO. I'll tell you a little bit more about us in a second, but at a high level, we're a research advisory firm. Gleb, thanks for all the kind words about Gartner. We were bought by Gartner a couple weeks ago, so
Congratulations.
Thank you. Nothing changes though. We just happen to be able to plug into the world's largest research and advisory platform. We're really excited about that. But I put together some slides that are going to share some kind of insights and data that we collect from literally hundreds of the world's fastest growing companies. And I think that will be of value to you. To me, when I come to events like this, the most valuable sessions, though, are the ones that people like Gleb do. Because you get this real inside view into what the world's leading marketing and sales organizations are doing. And that's rare that we have the opportunity to do that. So, and by the way, just so everyone knows, we work with Nutanix. We think the Nutanix marketing organization, sales organization is literally one of the best in the world. It's very, very impressive what you all have built. So, okay, so let's do a quick little exercise. Gleb used this phrase, automation. Stand up if you think automation in general in society is a good thing. Just stand up if you do. I'm going to make you stand up so we get a little exercise. Okay, we beat the minority into submission. I saw a couple people who wanted to stay sitting down, but they stood up. All right. Halfway. Okay, yeah, halfway. Okay. Okay, great. You can sit back down. Now, just quick show of hands. How many people think automation is a good thing in the world of sales and marketing? Just show of hands. Okay. Yeah, we agree with that. We think that technology and automation is one of the primary drivers behind this concept that we pay a lot of attention to at TOPO, which is we really feel like there's never been a better time to be in sales and marketing. There are lots of different reasons for that. We're going to talk about those reasons today. But one of the primary drivers of that is our ability to use and leverage technology, automation, AI, okay? So that is really kind of the fundamental premise of this presentation. I want to share like 4 trends that we're tracking that I think will be interesting to you. Some of them are really big trends, like account-based. Some of them are smaller trends that we'll talk about that sort of highlight why it's such a great time to be in B2B sales and marketing right now. Before we do that, though, let me just share a little bit of information about who we are and why I think you should listen to us. So we are a research advisory firm, sort of like a Gartner group, right? It's just we don't do anything to help the IT organization. Everything we do is designed to help sales and marketing. We have 3 different practices at our business. A marketing practice. A lot of the work that we do in that marketing practice is focused on account-based. We have a dedicated sales development practice. Sometimes people call sales development different things. They'll call it business development, lead development, et cetera. But it's that lead qualification function that either does inbound lead follow-up or outbound prospecting. And then we have a sales practice as well. And in the world of sales, we tend to distinguish between field sales and inside sales. Our analysts and consultants, regardless of the practice area that they support, they all have this really simple, singular mission in life, which is to help our clients grow revenues faster, of course, but most importantly, to help them do that in a repeatable, scalable, modern way. And so the types of issues that we're helping our clients with are things like overall go-to-market strategy. Account-based would be an example of that. We do a lot of work around what we call process-related issues. So things like lead definitions and handoffs, and do you have the right sales stages in place? We do work around plays. So those are the tactics that we use on the front line. So when we say we're doing orchestration, what does that really mean, right? When we say we follow up on an inbound lead, what does that really mean? When we say a sales rep does discovery, what does that really mean? We do work around org design, metrics, and then last but not least, the different technologies that our clients are using. And so we help our clients with all those issues, and the way that we do that is there's this foundational element to our business that we call our high growth data set. We spend a lot of time and energy every year collecting data from a few hundred of the world's best sales and marketing organizations. The data is very granular, very specific. So just in the realm of sales development, to use that as an example, we collect data on something like 90 different data points and metrics. And that kind of informs everything that we do for our clients. You can become a subscriber to one of our practices. That gets you an annual assessment, research advisory. We also do custom consulting work. Our flagship consulting product is what we call a playbook. It's like an owner's manual for a function in sales and marketing. And then we host a lot of events as well, including our own summit, which takes place right down the road here every April, a couple thousand sales and marketing leaders here for a couple days of really intensive learning. So we do all this for companies like yours, right? Literally the world's best companies, the world's fastest growing companies. There's now over $100 billion in revenue that depends upon TOPO in some way, shape, or form. You can see big companies like, Amazon and Microsoft and Google and Adobe and so forth, all the way down to early stage startups. But the consistent theme across all these organizations is grow faster, and all these organizations are really committed to scalability, right? And that's what we help them with. So that's a little background on TOPO, who we are, why we think you should listen to us. I think one of the things that we really love about sales and marketing today is that we really believe there's never been a better time to be in sales and marketing. We have this saying internally, we call it the golden age of revenue. Like, we really believe that that's the case in B2B right now. And when you look at a lot of the growth rates that B2B technology companies are achieving right now, that certainly seems to be the case. I mean, B2B technology companies are growing at a faster rate today than they ever have in history. And a lot of that comes down to product market fit. Like, we're building products now that are really usable, that deliver value to our clients. But a lot of it comes down to how we're actually executing in sales and marketing today. There are a lot of different things we could talk about, literally hundreds of different things. I tried to distill down kind of 4 core ideas that I thought would be interesting to this particular audience. As I mentioned earlier, some of them are big, like the emergence of account-based as a dominant go-to-market strategy in B2B right now. We think that's a really exciting trend. Some of them are a little bit smaller, right? Like, for example, the emergence of high-value orchestrated experiences that we can deliver to our prospective buyers now. So I'll take you through all 4 of these. I'll take you through the other 2, including this notion that like software is eating sales and marketing. Some people see that and they think that's a negative. Our view is that's actually a positive if done the right way. We'll also talk a little bit about this thing that we call the data paradox, which is the more data I get. A year ago, that used to mean the lower the quality was. That's not necessarily the case anymore. A lot of companies have figured out how to balance an abundance of data with high quality data. So we'll talk about that as well. So those are the 4 trends I wanted to talk about. Let's start with a really big one, which is we believe that account-based is really becoming the dominant go-to-market strategy in B2B. That doesn't mean that kind of traditional demand gen, like volume and velocity inbound models, MQL-centric models, are disappearing. Those things still exist. But where companies are seeing really the best ROI is off of their account-based programs. There's some reasons for this that we'll talk about in a second. We think this idea is so powerful that account-based is just going to become B2B marketing. In B2B, we have this luxury available to us that we don't have in consumer markets. In consumer markets, you are typically talking about tens of millions to hundreds of millions of target consumers that you can go after. It's sort of impossible to know who all those consumers are until they've engaged with you, right? In B2B, that's not necessarily the case. A lot of people, well, let me ask a question. How many people think account-based is just for a few dozen accounts or a few hundred accounts? It's fine if you think that, it's cool. Okay, no one thinks that. That's good, because you can use account-based across hundreds of thousands to single-digit millions of accounts. Those accounts are knowable, right? You may not be able to go run like custom events for every single one of those accounts, but the starting premise of account-based is that we can just know who the accounts are. That's why account-based is so powerful. We have this known universe of targets that we can go after, okay? I'll come back to that in a second. But we just think eventually account-based becomes B2B marketing. Like even for B2B vendors that target SMB, right? Like is anyone here from Ring Central? No. So Ring Central target, they care about, at least in North America, they care about 8 million accounts. Now they don't run account-based for all 8 million accounts, but for a pretty big segment of that account base, they run account-based. And so you can apply this stuff to even kind of these more consumer-looking markets in the B2B world because these accounts are knowable. So what is the big deal about account-based and why is it so exciting? I mean, the answer is the metrics are really compelling. Early adopters around account-based have seen significant improvements in things like average deal size, customer lifetime value, engagement rates, win rates, like closed won rates. The metrics that we're seeing in this world are really, really compelling. And one of the things that's useful to think about with respect to account-based is just how is it different than like traditional demand generation models. And we tend to, what you see on the left here is it's kind of like a taxonomy of how we think about sales and marketing, right? You've got your market, you've got the process that you use to govern what you do in sales and marketing, you've got how you're organized, you have metrics that you look at, you've got plays that you run, you've got technology that you use. And there's some really like striking differences across all of these things. The market is an obvious one. My last company that I started, several of the companies I last started, when we would go raise money, we always wanted to talk about the total available market, the TAM, with prospective investors. This market has a $12 billion TAM or whatever. Now I don't do that anymore. I talk about like, actually, here's our ideal customer profile, and we believe that there are 10,000 accounts that fit that ideal customer profile, and we believe each one of those accounts will be worth $1 million to us over a 3-year period. That's a way more, in my mind, that's a way more valuable way of looking at the world than this is a $12 billion TAM. So that second way of looking at the market, that's an account-based way of looking at the market. First way of looking at the market, the TAM, that's a demand gen, right? There's $12 billion out there, and some percentage of that is going to come to me over time, inbound, right? Volume and velocity. Process is another really important distinction in this world, right? So process in a demand gen world is waterfall, right? Marketing does this, they hand the MQL to the sales development team does this, they hand the SQL to the sales team. And as that happens, marketing, with all due respect to marketing, is basically saying, I'm done, I generated the MQL, right? And then sales development is saying, I'm done, I generated the SQL. And sales is sitting there going, I don't like the MQLs. In fact, I don't even like the SQLs, right? In an account-based world, that changes, right? Your process actually changes. You're actually orchestrating different activities across all 3 of those functions, and by the way, other functions as well. So you get out of this realm of hard handoffs. And that also has an impact on the metrics that you look at. So demand gen world, we really hinge everything off of the MQL. In an account-based world, there's some different pipeline metrics that you can look at. One of our favorites is what we call TAP, Target Account Pipeline. That is just how much pipeline did we generate against our target account lists in the last 30 days, 90 days, or a year. And we kind of don't care who did it. We just want to generate more pipeline against the target account list, right? Organization, you can see all functions get committed to the target account list. One of the cool things about account-based is as marketers, we get to go to sales and we say, here are the 1,000 accounts that are on the target account list. Do you agree? And maybe there's some back and forth on that, but yes, you end up agreeing on the names that are on the target account list because they have to fit the ICP. And then we get to say, okay, with our account-based programs, everything we're going to do in marketing is going to be targeted against these 1,000 accounts. That is revelatory to sales. Like sales can't wait to hear that marketing, instead of just carpet bombing the internet with white papers and webinars and generating MQLs, marketing, we're actually going to do specific things to help at these 1,000 accounts that we all agree are the right accounts. That is what sales does. That's what sales wants to hear from marketing, right at the end of the day. Metrics, we talked about. Plays, we're going to talk about plays in a second, right? Like demand gen world, random acts of lead generation, right? Like, well, we got this cool white paper, a Gartner Magic Quadrant, or what, whatever it is, and we're gonna share that on the internet, right? In an account-based world, because we believe these accounts are really valuable to us, that's how they got onto the target account list, we actually get to invest in really cool experiences that are delivered by multiple teams, okay? So it's really different, and it's really, really important. That's one of the big changes in B2B sales and marketing that makes it a better time to be working in our profession than any other time in history. Another thing that makes it a good time is we kind of write this title. This makes it sound like this daunting thing. It's scary. So how many people have heard this phrase that Mark Andreessen coined? Software is eating the world, right? And it's like this popular catchphrase out there right now. It's true, and it's definitely true in sales and marketing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing though, right? In fact, our view is it's actually helping people, right? It's not destroying jobs, it's creating jobs. Now, some of our competitors disagree with this. A few years ago, Forrester came up with this prediction that 1 million B2B salespeople would lose their jobs by the year 2020, right? I don't know, but I think there are more people working in B2B sales today than any other time in history. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that software is helping salespeople do their jobs better, right? There's very little software out there that has just like replaced salespeople. Very little, right? Even AWS, they have really well-paid salespeople, right? Like, it's pretty incredible. And so what's cool about software eating sales and marketing, and this is kind of a sales example because there's so many people who work in sales, you would think like software could automate some of this stuff. What's cool about what's happening around software and sales and marketing is the adoption of software is evolving along this pretty predictable path, right? Like, well, we started out with software that like describes what humans do when they sell something. That's CRM, right? Like, CRM doesn't automate anything that a human does. It actually asks the human to do more. It asks you to enter a bunch of data into the CRM about things that you had to do as a human being, right? So we call that describe, right? And CRM, record what's happening in sales. That's an example of that. Then you start to get into manage, right? So how do I use software to more effectively plan, manage, like compensation planning software is an example of this, right? Some of the more advanced analytics packages are examples of this. Where kind of all the heat has been in the last couple years and continues to be though, is in these two categories to the far right, which is, okay, I can now describe what I do. I now use software to manage what I do. How do I actually start automating some of the things that humans do, right? And this is where it starts to get scary for some people, and it shouldn't be, right? Because what's really happening in this world is you're automating routine menial tasks that you don't want your salespeople or your marketing organization spending time on, right? And so like one example of this is like e-signature, right? Like Adobe eSign, a DocuSign, whatever it is you use, right? You're automating a task there where like someone used to have to print the thing out, sign it, scan it, email it back, fax it, do whatever we used to do 10 years ago, right? Now we can just click a few buttons. It's actually really cool, and you save a salesperson, I don't know how much time, an hour, 30 minutes, but in aggregate, it's actually a pretty huge savings for a large sales organization. And then the other thing that's starting to happen is now we are starting to enhance human skills, right? So I think 12 months ago, people were like concerned about what's AI going to do to sales and marketing. And in our view, what it's really doing is it's just enhancing these uniquely human skills that we have, unique skills that we have as human beings, right? And so if you look at automate, right, like let's automate routine sales activities and tasks. Another example of this is like Outreach and SalesLoft and these companies that like automate the emails that we send as salespeople, and now even the calls that we make and so forth. That just frees us up to spend more time on things like, well, I'm going to personalize the messaging that I use for each prospect that I send an email to, right? We can't do that if we're pecking away at Gmail or Outlook or whatever it is. And then enhance uniquely human. You know, the number one application of AI in a sales organization is not like, well, we got rid of 100 salespeople. It is literally, we are able to make recommendations to salespeople so that they can do a better job. Next best actions, right? Like, here's what's happening in your sales process. Here's the action you should take as a sales rep as a result of that, right? Another application of AI is around real-time coaching, right? Here's what I'm reading in your emails and seeing from your call logs and call recordings and so forth. Let me provide you with some real-time automated coaching on what you should do, right? So this software is eating the world concept, it's actually just making us better in sales and marketing. We really believe that. It's improving productivity, not taking away jobs. So that's another reason it's a good time to be in sales and marketing. Is like technology is your friend, automation is your friend. Third reason we think it's a really interesting time to be in sales and marketing is the types of experiences that we are able to deliver to prospective buyers now are much better than what we used to be able to do 5-10 years ago, right? And a lot of this is related to account base and the fact that we now have a set of target accounts where we know we get higher deal sizes or larger deal sizes, and we know we get higher LTVs. So we can invest in these experiences that really, really resonate with buyers, right? And so some of these things are kind of obvious, right? Like, well, we're at one of these. Like, this is one of those experiences, right? Like, we're in a nice venue, surrounded by smart people, talking about really interesting topics. This is an example of a high-value experience. Where it starts to get more interesting, though, is when you start to kind of piece these things together across an entire customer experience. By the way, we'll share the slides at the end, no problem. So there are a couple things to kind of emphasize here. You know, one is that some of the dots up here do represent like really valuable experiences. Like, one of my favorite examples is an example from Zendesk. Zendesk, for certain customers, in their enterprise segment, they will go on site to United Airlines or Chevron or whatever it is, and they'll run a workshop where they put someone from Zendesk in the workshop, and they spend a day with the key stakeholders on site, and they just map out the different customer journeys that a United Airlines customer might have, right? And then the prospect gets a deliverable out of that. Like, here are all your major customer journeys. There's very little conversation about the actual software, right? It's really just about delivering value to the prospect at that point in time. So that's an example of a high-value experience. Those are really, really important. High-value offer in that case, right? Those are super important. The other point I'd just make on this slide is that this spans multiple functions. You can see that we've actually got 5 different functions in our organization supporting the experience that we're going to deliver to this customer, right? We've got marketing, obviously. We've got sales development, sales, customer success, account management. You can even add in the executive team. You can even add in the finance organization. I mean, there are lots of different people who can participate in these high-value orchestrated experiences, right? The one point I just make here on this slide is there's this misnomer, right? And I don't think I've called it account-based. A lot of people call account-based marketing, right? And it should be led by marketing, but it's super important that you get buy-in from these different groups to support these experiences. In our view, one of the most important functions to support your account-based efforts is actually sales development, right? When we think about how account-based is going to be largely outbound, how we want to personalize our messaging and our offers, how we want to be able to do research about these accounts, it's oftentimes sales development that is the best equipped organization to go do that, okay? When you start stringing all this stuff together, it does become complex, right? It is super, super important to do a couple things to manage this complexity. One thing is to make sure that you have buy-in from these different stakeholder groups. For a lot of our clients, we just recommend that they start with marketing and sales development. Just get buy-in from those two groups to support a coordinated, orchestrated campaign, start demonstrating results, and then you can add in from there. Second thing that we recommend is for campaigns that you run, I'm sure a lot of you are used to creating like campaign briefs or program briefs or something like that, that like documents like, here are the objectives, here's what we're gonna do, here's who owns it, etc. Here's the budget. That's even more important in the account-based world, right? You actually need a canonical record of the truth that's gonna tell people like, this is what we're doing around this program and initiative. So creating a brief, if you will, or a plan, if you will, to govern your high-value orchestrated experiences is really important. Third thing that's important is technology, right? Look, this actually sort of abstracts a lot of the complexity, right? Like this SDR campaign, there might be 21 different touches that you make just as part of the outbound outreach box, right? And those 21 touches that you make, you might actually have the SDR personalize 11 of them, right? So there's real complexity here, and making sure that you're using technology here to support these efforts, whether it's technology that automates those menial tasks or actually enhances our uniquely human skills around things like personalizing messaging and so forth, is really, really important, okay? So the final point I'd just like to make is around this thing that I alluded to earlier around the data paradox, right? We actually believe now that there's an opportunity to have an abundance of high quality data in B2B marketing and sales. A year ago, I don't think we felt like that was the case. In fact, we built this chart, which was like, we called it the data paradox. And the idea here was like, the more data I got, the less useful it became, right? And so if you look at like, you know, the waves of data that are coming at us, and they're still coming at us, right? Like we used to just be able to look at internal data, right? What's the conversion rate on that landing page would be an example of like an internal piece of data. Then we started to get access to public data, right? Intent data would be an example of that, right? Like, tell me what this account is doing out there on the internet and what they're interested in. And now, you know, even in the last few months, it's like, you know, the amount of data that's available to us just via voice now is really incredible, right? This is like Gong and Chorus and those companies, right? It's really, really interesting data. But there's so much of it, it's like, what do we do with it, right? And we came up with some different ways to kind of think about that. We basically said, look, there's kind of this 3-point framework to make your data more useful to you. One is just around the data itself, right? Like, how do we get data into the full customer experience as opposed to just siloed data, right? Another is the insights that we derive from that data. You know, an example of an insight we might derive from data in a laggard scenario is this landing page example. Like, what's the conversion rate of that landing page? Or how many MQLs did I generate last month, right? Versus, how do I get like true customer insights, right? Like, how do I truly get to know my customer, right? And then kind of the most interesting area we think is around activation, right? So if I have a ton of data, if I don't do anything with it, it's by definition sort of low quality data, right? If I'm able to do something with it, if I'm able to like activate campaigns and programs using that data, that gets more interesting, right? And so the analysts at TOPO, by the way, I'm not an analyst, so the really smart people are the analysts. The analysts at TOPO have come up with kind of some different ideas around data activation. It's what we believe is the holy grail, right? And so being able to identify sort of time-based indicators or triggers that tell you this account is interested in X, as an example, right? That's the intent data example. That's sort of step one around data activation. So having these triggers, it doesn't need to be intent data. You could have other triggers, right? Like something happened in Salesforce or something happened on your own website, right? create a library of ready-to-run plays. I will tell you, across our business, whether it's sales or marketing, the interest in like having a standard set of plays that we run in marketing and sales grossly outweighs any other topic or issue that we cover with our clients. Our clients really want to know, like, when we do outbound prospecting, when we do host an event, like, what are the tactics that are going to work the best there? And you need to memorialize those things, right? Like having a standard set of plays that we can go run that may in fact be orchestrated is really, really important. The other thing I'd just say, I forgot to make this point around the emergence of account-based as a dominant go-to-market strategy. The biggest thing that's happening in account-based right now is everyone started thinking about account-based as a go-to-market strategy for sort of the top of the pyramid, right? My top 100 accounts. The best companies are now thinking, how do I do this at scale, right? Like, how do I push down my segment, into my B accounts, even my C accounts?
Quick question, I mean, in the era of demand generation, how come this wasn't the focus back then, would you say? Is it really the emergence of data and tools that's made this more possible and executable, or is it really just a mind shift?
I think it is part of it's a mind shift thing and like mindset thing, and like part of it is data and tools that are available to us now. I mean, it's funny, we've all sort of, well, at least I don't think about it nearly as much, but like, 10, 15 years ago, it was all about Google and search engine rankings, right? And organic search and maybe some paid search, right? And that's really changed. There are reasons that has changed, that, we still do those things, but like we've sort of hit the flat part of the S curve with a lot of those go-to-market programs. For a lot of our clients, what's really interesting about the account-based conversation starts with, okay, my inbound demand gen programs, I'm still getting some wins there, but they're like marginal improvements, right? I'm definitely at the top flat part of the S curve. So what's the next S curve, right? Like everyone's out there looking for the next S curve. And for us, we think account-based is that. So that's kind of the mindset shift that has happened. And then, yes, technology, account-based has been around for a long time, right? We used to call it integrated marketing and some other things like that, right? Now we call it account-based. Technology allows us to do some really interesting things there, including orchestration and measure different things. But most importantly, really know our target accounts. That's sort of the most important thing. Good question. And then the final kind of data activation point is to be able to pull from our play library and actually run those plays based on what we know, based on the trigger that we've identified, right? But back to the point about scale and running account-based at scale, you can't run account-based at scale if you have to go design a unique program for every single account, right? So having this notion of like a preset play library is really important to that. By the way, this could start really simple, right? Like in a sales development organization, we might say for your A accounts, when you do outbound prospecting, you're going to customize 90% of the email that you're about to send. For our B accounts, you're going to customize 20% of it. You're going to use this template that we've written, you customize 20% of it. And then for your C accounts, you just send the templatized email, right? Like that's a way to think about driving scale into the account-based world. So that's really it. I know we're short on time. Emergence of account-based. Software is eating marketing and sales in a good way. High-value orchestrated experiences, really, really important. And this idea of like an abundance of high-quality data that's available to us. We think those are all really good things. By the way, if you can do like, not even all these things well, but if you can just do account-based well, you'll see 48% higher win rates, an increase of 33% in your average annual contract value, and an 11% close won rate against your target account list, right? I think we'd all take those metrics, right? So that's it. I'm happy to, I don't know if we have time, Gil, I'm happy to answer questions or hang out and answer questions. If you want a copy of these slides as well as other things that we publish and access to events that we host and so forth, just send an email to analyst@topohq.com. All right? Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.